Jets, Key the dog. Hello world. Patricia, O'Connor, and Frida, Reba, Dorsey here for part 2 of working on my bald cypress compilation. What we're doing here today, this is part 2. In part 1, I went with a little weenie skewer. Powerful super tool little weenie skewers. And I cleaned up the top dressing of all of this. I separated the weeds, which I threw on the floor. Pig. And I put the moss back here behind me. I put all the bio gold on a little end table just inside the door. And then I went through here and I cleaned all of this up here. I'm going to pay off. You can come over here and get in the show. All right, you don't have to. You just stand right there. I'm paying Frida off to stand by. Okay, where we're at now is I'm going to go through here and I'm going to go with my hemp broom and I'm going to rake this stuff forward because I don't want to rake it. I want to rake it and clean it, give it a little raked look, but I don't want to rake in the direction of the edge of the pot. I want to rake towards the center, and then if I have, and then I'll clean up any lumps or anything that shouldn't be there by hand. This is good. Get your hands in the dirt work here. Also, this breaks up anything, any little spots that I missed. This breaks them up right here with the broom. Spreads them around. We got most of our moss picked up. We got most of our weeds picked up. All of that clover. And now I'm looking at a lot of top roots. These top roots would not have grown like this exposed to the light, the sun or the overhead light that I have. These roots were all made possible by the moss. They grew in that layer of moss there at the top. As we watered, we watered through that moss. It acted like that screen on your faucet that kind of filters the water and increases somewhat your oxygen content, percolating the water. I bet it's not in frame. Maybe it is now. Colander, 50-50 with peat moss and the moss that we collected off the top of the tree. And as an added bonus, I took all the bio gold that I threw off to the side, I broke it down and I added it in there. Very last thing. So when I go pouring that out, I'll probably see a few almost whole lumps of that into the mix that I didn't exactly break down. That won't kill anything. What I wanted to do was get this mixture, if you can see that. What I really wanted to make sure I was doing was getting that mixture of the two mosses, the stuff we had growing, and the peat moss, getting them pretty well blended and mostly about the same size. As I'm going through it, as I'm putting this out, if I dump out, and I didn't dump it out in anything and look at it, so when I dump that out, it's going to be our mystery guess. We're going to see how, what was hanging out on the bottom. I suspect we'll probably see a few lumps of missed stuff, of stuff I didn't break down. We can do that right. We can do that right quick. It won't kill us. And so I'm gonna go through here and just nibble away at some of this stuff that at the end of the day we can see will still be sticking up. So this is just going to help us. This is just going to help us neaten everything up a little bit. I'm not trying to pull anything up as much as I'm just trying to get what's already exposed and cut it off at a livable, likable level. All right. So a little of this goes a long way. You can see I'm not using what I consider to be my good scissors for this. My Japanese steel scissors, I try not to cut wet, dirty roots with them, or I try not to stick them in the soil. I have grabbed them before without thinking, but for the most part, I won't do that as a practice. Oh yeah, look at you showing up here for treats now. That's good. I'm going to leave that alone. Go through here. And a lot of this stuff I could pull up and clip if I were to, but it's not really about root reduction. It's at all. It's more about just cleaning up stuff that won't. Whenever we put down our top dressing, I'm just cutting back the stuff that's sticking up enough right now that it'll probably still be sticking up after we put our top dressing down. And so for that reason, I'm going through and clipping it back. Just a little bit more tidy up. Like I see big roots running along the top here. I'm not gunning for anybody. We're not looking to reduce anything. I'm just trying to get all the stuff that's sticking up, clipped away, where it won't look unsightly. We're making pretty quick work of it though. Ooh. That's probably the biggest one. Hell yeah. Just reach through there to cut off that, to do a second chop on those roots I just showed you. And I grabbed a whole bunch of akadama with these shears, so I cut through that limb and about 3 rocks. That's like I say, that's not something I want to do. That's not something I want to do with my good Japanese scissors. These have been pretty good. These have been pretty good scissors for the most part. I don't like the design. If you cut something that's hard to cut, when you get through it and this thing and the ends come together, quite often that happens at the expense of the palm of your hand. You'll end up with the blood blister where you get caught up in that. I think other tools have a design that lends themselves better to doing that kind of work without that happening. Yeah. Years ago, also people said that people would say that stainless isn't always known for the best edge when it comes to cutting. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think there's some Japanese surgical stainless that will definitely keep an edge going. When I worked as a grip electrician in the film business, I was never actually a grip. I was more an electrician and a rigger, and quite often as a rigger, I would get called on the same crews that grips were working on because they would know they would need a couple of electricians. So rather than admitted that they were hiring electricians, and it was always little power games and stuff, they would get that intermediate person who got along well with both departments. Oddly enough, that was me. So changing my shingle a little bit. I got calls from both departments, although I was technically a lamp operator. Uh, but as that goes, we were really competitive about our tools, and a lot of times we were wearing our living around, in our tool belt. Batman had nothing on us in those tool belts. And one of the things I really liked was my Spyderco. Spyderco was a Japanese company that made like diving knives or other knives. Really good stuff. Multi-tools also. Okay, I have swept that up. I have almost cut back all of my little indiscretions here. I'm gonna cut that and that. After this, I'll go with that. After this, we're gonna start spreading out our top dressing. Our top dressing isn't gonna look like that much. It's just gonna look like maybe somebody sprinkled out a little hay in proportion. Oh yeah, no, quite the opportunist. I am closer. I think you calculated the least you can do and you're doing it. I mean, more power to you and all, but yeah. I'm talking to Frida. I think she's out of frame, but she's milking it for somebody that's not in the show. If you want to take today, you can take today. You should have said something. Yeah, I wouldn't have put you through that. Okay, here. Here. You look baby. So, having swung around back here, I see stuff I missed. So I'm just going to get this really quick, and then we'll start with this colander full of stuff. We'll see how that looks once it's all been poured out. Look at what you're cutting. Believe we're gonna call that good. All right, this colander has got clean up your mess. This is sphagnum moss from a bag up from a nursery. The moss that we collected off the tree 30 minutes ago, and all of our little bio gold that I picked up. I'm just kind of mix those with the dressing to sweeten the deal. Now I'm just gonna go through and start sort of strategically. We'll just go with sort of strategically. I started to say something I wasn't supposed to say. And we're going to start spreading all of this out. I'm putting these little piles, kind of trying to even all these piles out over the area. We'll be dispersing all of this stuff. Also, it's not particularly green, nor will it be particularly green tomorrow. This is going to probably take a few weeks to take, month or so maybe. I don't know. Depends on a lot of stuff. But if I wanted it to look greener, if I wanted all of this stuff to look greener, I have heard of people And this is something Ryan Neal mentioned. This is kind of his. I'd seen other people do this, but I'd also seen him do this. And when he did his class on it, he talked about, didn't take part in this, and we all kind of chuckled too. But you can add food dye. You could add green food dye to this, and then it would look more like moss already. I mean, it is moss. It's two kind of moss. It's one moss that's living, thriving spores, and it's another moss that's been dead in the bag for a couple of years. But it all makes for the good base for the stuff that we want to keep. See, later, when planted in real substrate, I picture something more like this. These guys will all be more. This substrate won't taper down. This tree will come up. This tree will come up. Also, excuse me. Last week, several days ago, somewhere in there, I put up these bamboo stakes. This one I'm going to change to the other side. I think. Yeah, this one I'm going to change to the other side. Now, why I did that was when I first put up my artificial lights, I'm sorry, that's a lot of dust. Frida, she's coughing over all the dust I'm putting in the air. When I first put up these lights, I used the rig that they came with, and they hung down about a foot, which meant that by the end of the summer, the trees had grown up past the lights. And once those tops had grown up past the lights, it began to see that the sun was still overhead, so it began to try to turn towards the sun. It wasn't that the sun was winning the race between the lights and the sun, and the trees were bending towards the sun because the lights were insufficient. It's because the lights were good enough that they had grown all the way up to it and then blew past it. The limbs below it were still encouraging it to keep going, which pushed the dominant top farther into the shadows, and the only thing it was getting at that point was sun. So I had to, they started kind of leaning that way. That's soft tissue. I could wire that, or I could put a wedge cut in it. Or I could even cut that right here this summer and let that leader take over again. And in another 2 years, you'd not even see where that happened. But what I do is I stake them up, and I'm going to I am going to train it away from that a little bit. So that's what's going on. That's what's going on with those stakes. I've done that. I did that somewhat last year and took some of that whip out of it. A little bit more of that, which should probably be good. I didn't think to tell y'all that until now. I kind of looked at that in 2 other videos and goes, yeah, I probably should have mentioned what was going on there. Sliding all around here, making sure I don't have any clover hanging out in amongst all this stuff. And when I'm done, I'm going to go back through, even though all the bottle gold we picked up is all still in here, I will go back through and put out and sprinkle out, dole out a little more bottle gold. We are at the stage of these guys where we're feeding these trees. We're feeding all of them. We're keeping our foot on the gas, so to speak, and that keeps the trees pushing and producing more foliage, and then that produces more photosynthesis, which then pushes out more roots. And the whole idea is just to get these guys to fatten up for this to become this, and for this to become that, for that to become that, and for that to all kind of roll over and become one. And when that does, the main part of what my job was, as far as these bonsai trees, will be done. At that point, I know that if I get rid of them, that I'll look at that space and miss them. But if I did, this would clear up space for a lot more trees. And I think this is one of those things for me where the trip was probably going to be the most fun of this. I could see me parting with this someday to make room for something else, to have this piece of real estate, and for these big honking beauties to be a display somewhere else. That would be more, that would be cool for it to be accessible to more people. It's accessible to us, and we're a club of we're a pretty cool little club here. Makes it a little exclusive, I guess. All right, looky here. I'm looking at places where I went a little over, and looking at places where I'm a little light, and I am starting to be pretty happy with the results thereof. I say we're getting there. Big lumps, big lumps. And I'm still seeing a few big lumps of moss that didn't totally get broken. It's all good. It's okay. We're not curing cancer here. But that's my little rant on moss propagation, cleaning up the top of our bald cypress, humongous pre-bonsai planter. Oh, I got this container. This is a huge mica container. If you ever were doing something like this and you were wondering where the heck somebody gets something this big, I got this from the good guys at Weingert's in Florida. They have some beautiful cypress trees. I've never bought one of those, but you could buy trees bigger than this one from those, I believe. You could. I don't know how many they still. I assume that they still have. That they probably still have plenty of those. Like and subscribe if you guys haven't already. Our next gig will be, we'll probably do something. We'll probably bring in something tonight and set up camera and do that. We're gearing up for and then tomorrow comes with another beautiful day and another beautiful opportunity to shoot something out on here. And in the meantime, this pretty much wraps up part 2 of pulling up the moss and pulling up the weeds and pulling up all the other stuff that was in here that didn't belong here, and redoing the dressing on our Ditchum Texodium bald cypress tree compilation. And thank you so much for watching.